Okay, so I think I'm going to make this a series that I will call Why I Pick What I Pick for I pick out of here, out of these stories, my YouTube playlist that I put out every day for you guys, and I've had several segments that I've done where I tell you why I pick what I pick, and I'm gonna turn this one down, and I'll tell you why.
On both of our behalves, that like we are not the most obvious people to be speaking about like higher education, not because we are women of color, but because of the relationships that we each had individually with higher education. I am a Harvard College alum, but I will say this openly as an officer of the university, like I did not have a great experience at this institution because I was first generation before there was language for that. I was a closeted queer woman of color, and I didn't fit into the boxes that were sort of expected of a Harvard graduate. I think.
Okay, I'll tell you what I don't like about this. It's certainly not the fact that she's black, but whenever we win, and that's good. I mean, it's good that and I don't like calling people queer, by the way. But whenever we get what we want, there's always this small group of kind of elite that come out of it, and they come out on top. They make money. They, unlike all the rest of the people they represent. So, and you know, Harvard's the problem. There's no way that we should be proud that queer, black, whatever, all of us misfits came out of Harvard. I was offered a place at Harvard. I was sent to Oxford, and I really didn't understand what was going on. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to junior college in California for free. You know, I grew up in California, went to high school in California, and except for the year that I was in Indonesia, which I've talked about a lot. And just the whole idea of a free education, because I felt like that was the right thing for people to do, because it wasn't but even free education in this case is not really fair, because you had to be within the county or the area of the school to go to it, and they built the schools in all white areas. Isn't that convenient, right? I mean, when I went to college at Foothill, it was all white. Foothill College in California. Okay, so like here it is. And you'll just find that it's a elitist California school, even though I'm not sure whether they charge tuition now. I don't think I had to pay anything. Okay. Anyway, so this, you know, I don't even, understand a lot of times why something irks me. A lot of times I'll watch something like I started watching this, and I watched the same clip that I showed you just now, and something bothered me about it, and it started to form in my head. What is it about it that bothers me about this? It's an hour show, but the first 5 seconds, I'm like, there's something wrong here. And what it is instead of this happens under a capitalist system, and there's something wrong there. Something very about it being part of the capitalist system. And what bothered me was that people like her get to go to Harvard and get that degree and do very well, even though nobody else does, right? Right? I mean, she's like the 1 or the 2 or the 5 or the 50, I don't know how many. Now, somehow lost in all this is the fact that Harvard's a whole bunch of, like, part of the little gang of people who, it's an institution that very much represents what's unfair in how the capitalist system is unfair. I know that I've said this many times, but not that many people watch my shows, so I'm gonna, even though I hate repeating myself, I'm gonna tell this story again. Okay? My father worked, we lived in Beirut, or just outside of Beirut, and basically my father was passing information to help the Israelis target the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which I'm not going to get into how bad the PLO was. I'm not going to get into whether they had a right or didn't have a right to fight the but I will say, I think it's obvious, right, what the Israelis have done to the Palestinians, and the reason the PLO existed back then and still exists as far as I know. I think that's a no-brainer, right? Okay, so because my dad in Lebanon did that, there's a lot of rich and powerful Jews, and some of them are still, I consider, very good friends of mine, who made sure that my dad got anything he wanted. Now, we're in New York because my dad was in some kind of transition period in between working for Singer Sewing Machines, which is, in his case, just a front, right? It's just a front for his activities, working for Singer. So, you know, I wasn't there, so I don't know what they told him, but I imagine what they told him was, you know, you do what we want. If you can tell us, like, where Yasser Arafat's gonna be on a certain day. And by the way, I witnessed the airstrike to attempt to assassinate Yasser Arafat one day. I mean, they tried to kill him a few times, but I was there and I saw it in a horrific detail watched the whole thing, and have described it very well. It was awesome. I hate to say that. You people killing each other, it's a terrible thing, but, I'm a journalist, so just give me a camera, right? And tell me, and put me in a place where something like this happens. If I could take what's in my mind, that memory of seeing that stuff, it was awesome. And how the Israelis pulled it off. Because they didn't want to tip anybody off. And I'll describe that someday to you. But the point is that my dad was, I don't know if he's the one who gave them the information that day, but they were beholden to him. Obviously, they compensate people like my dad. They make sure that they have a job that pays very well. And what I was just saying was that I think that they told my dad, look, your son will get to have, the best education if he wants to go to Harvard or whatever. So, we're coming back from New York, I was at Oxford, and I spent a year there, and I like to say that I majored in drinking beer and playing darts, because I didn't like the classes. I didn't like the classes. I still don't know why I bothered to learn French. Whatever. So, I was going back to California to go to Foothill College, which again I say, as I was pointing out, this is all very complicated, isn't it? How junior college is even, free college even can be a front for racism. But, I was coming back from there, and we had stopped in New York City, and this is the only time I ever met these people, but I always wondered about this strange relationship with this family from Boston, Mr. Oppenheimer, Joe Oppenheimer, or it might have been Joe Oppenheim. And, for some reason, him and my dad were great friends, even though they weren't really friends. They only saw each other once in a while. But when, the reason is obvious. He was some kind of handler for my dad. He was the go-between between the Israelis, and, obviously he was an American Zionist, and I've met his son, and we sat up in his New York apartment and smoked weed and had a good time. As far as I know, he's a really nice person, and we got along great. And he's probably a liberal. The only difference we would have is whether or not Jews should be doing what they're doing in Israel, kicking all the Palestinians out, and but we never talked about that, of course. So, I'm sitting in the basement deli in New York with Mr. Oppenheim, Joe Oppenheim. I think it was just Oppenheim. And he's telling me about how they have the best Reuben, which is a type of sandwich with, I forget what kind of meat, some kind of, and in the whole world. And my dad wasn't there for some reason. And I didn't even know this guy at the time. And he tells me, would you like to go to Harvard? I was like, I don't even have grades. I mean, I don't have grades. I'm in the middle of a 2-year program and I'm quitting it. I was in the same program as Bill Clinton, the International Baccalaureate program. I'd just finished 1 year and I had just kind of done okay. And in some classes I probably didn't even do okay. And I'm like, and that's at Oxford, right? That's at St. Clair's College in Oxford, which I was sent there by my parents with the excuse, they said that, oh, well, we want you to be closer to Saudi Arabia, where we're at. All bullshit, man. You know, my whole life has been bullshit. That side of it, that neocon side of it. It was just constantly, the whole thing was just a sequence of events designed to entice me into being a neocon. And thank God, just like I have little bells going off when I see this, thank God I had the intelligence to pick up on what was going on. So, you know, I tell him I don't have any grades. And he goes, man, that doesn't matter. Well, he didn't say man, but he said, that's not what matters. What matters is, would you like to go to Harvard? Because I can get you in. And I was just like, you know, he thought that I would be in awe of this. I'd be like, well, yeah, of course I want to go to Harvard. And I was like, Joe, you know, I grew up in California and I loved it. I loved my friends from high school. I loved all the partying. I didn't say all this, but I was thinking it for sure. And I want to go back, and I want to hang out with all my friends, you know, skip classes and go to the beach and, you know, have a good time. I'm sure he couldn't understand that. You know, I'm sure he thought, what is this kid crazy? Anyway, so I skipped out on Harvard. I skipped class at Harvard. And that's how it is, man. That's how it's set up. That's how our country is set up. Now, I'm not saying it hasn't improved. I'm not saying that some people are better off now, aren't better off. Of course they are, you know. Minorities have it a little bit better off, and I think in terms of their housing and things like that, and food stamps and stuff, I think it's much better than it was. But part of the reason that I'm on food stamps is because I wanted to experience it in order to find out what was really going on. And they do go out of their way to try and all kinds of little things, as I put it in the what I said that's getting me thrown in jail. All the little shit that they do to try and cheat people out of their food stamps. And that's done by individuals who probably aren't even aware they're doing it. And it's little things. It's things like telling somebody that the piece of paper they handed in doesn't fit, doesn't work, doesn't get them their food stamps, and then not really telling them what they do have to turn in. So like in my case, I had to prove, just so stupid, I had to prove that I was getting $245 a month in income. Well, I gave them stuff, one thing at a time. I gave them different stuff, and they kept on saying, "Well, that doesn't work." And all they had to do was tell me, "Look, all you have to do is write this. I, Martin Drummond, received $245 a month from so-and-so as payments on the sale of a house, blah blah blah, whatever." That's all I had to do. And I did that. And then one of the guys, because it was always a guy at the food stamp place, said, "Oh no, you can't do that. That's rental income." And I said, "No, it's not. It's a sale." And he said, "Sorry, but we're not going to accept it until you call it rental income." Well, in fact, I'm selling the guy the house. I'm not renting it to him. Just because he's living there and making a payment every month doesn't make it rental income. It's a sales contract, and he makes payments. He doesn't pay rent, he makes payments. To me, I finance it. Well, as soon as I got a hold of a girl and pointed this out, she said, "Well, don't worry." And I already had lost my food stamps. These people screwed me so hard. Man, I mean, I was trying to upload my documents because they won't allow me to go into the office anymore because of what I said. And because they say I threatened them, which is utter nonsense. I didn't threaten anybody. So, I mean, this is all part of it, right? I wanted to experience that, and I did. I experienced the tyranny over the people who were trying to get food. They need food, and our capitalist system isn't providing them with food. It's not providing it. And it's, you know what, this idea that somehow these Republicans and these Trumpies and conservative Democrats, the establishment, they're trying to say that, oh, the fact that you can go out and get a $7 an hour or $10 an hour job, that's it. That's okay. All of a sudden, the fact that this economy doesn't work well and doesn't support a basic lifestyle, that the capitalist system doesn't support people enough to get them their essential goods and services, right? The kind of, what was that song? I can't get a job because I don't have a car. I can't get a car because I don't have a job. Okay, so they say, well, you can now get a job, $7 an hour. Anybody can go out and get a job, $7, $10 an hour, right? And that's somehow their excuse for everything that's going on. Well, as I explained in one of the segments I did yesterday, well, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, none of it's working for a lot of people. Oh yeah, that 1 in 3 people doesn't even have an income in this country. 1 in 3. I mean, picture that. 1 in 3 people is dependent upon somebody else. And God forbid you're dependent upon an establishment type person, a person who defends the establishment mentally, right? Ideologically. Because who knows what kind of indignities you suffer. Nobody should have to depend on anybody else in this country, in any community. Community should, if a person doesn't have a job, that community should supply them with a roof over their heads, water, electricity, the internet, you know, the things that are basic to the community. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't try to find them a job, but it should provide them all those things. I mean, with me, I'm like, why bother with having a job? I mean, I'm retired. You know, I worked for forever, hard work, and I decided, even though I don't have a retirement, utterly dependent upon food stamps, and well, I've rejected my Obamacare. Anyway, so, you know, I mean, yes, I'm dependent upon other people and everything, and I don't think I should be. You know, I did my part. I worked part of the system long enough, and you know, they just have you work forever until the day you die, and they'll try and tell you things like, you know, the propaganda out there is like, oh, well, you know, people who work are healthier, they live longer, you know, all this stuff. Come on, man, that's nothing to do with it. The point is that you shouldn't have to. I mean, if you can show me why people should have to work bagging groceries at Kroger's till they're 80 years old and they drop dead, then I'll do it. But only if everybody does it. So that means CEOs of Kroger's or whatever. You know, let's share equally in this horrible life that you want people to lead. Because to me it's horrible. I mean, I want years of my life where I can do what I want, which is this. I want to be a journalist. I want to be able to talk about justice and fairness and all that. And this stuff, this segment, the reason I'm leaving it out is because I think it's unfair. I mean, I think it's great that a black woman gets a degree that she can show off, that'll take her a long ways. But Harvard, they're using her. They're using her. Look at her. She's beautiful. She may be a little bit overweight, but she's, and they're using her. Just like they use Ben Carson. And, you know, I don't even think black people can figure out what I'm talking about. I really don't. I've had 2 black neighbors. One in the apartments that I lived in, and one when I was living in my parents' house uh, the next door neighbors were black, and you know, they supported Trump. I was like, yeah, I thought, are they crazy? Well, no, they're not, because for people like them, there's black families who benefit, but only them. The rest of their people are left out in the cold. So you know, I mean, that's what this represents to me. And I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I just get the feeling, like when I watch this clip, that she knows that she's better off than like most black people, and because she's been like one of those few black people who's been picked and put on TV now, you know, in this video, and you know, these ultra rich Koch brothers, whoever they are, pick out certain black people. I used to call them, when I was a kid, we used to hear them called, and therefore we pick up on the phrase, token black people. Token, or Tolkien, I think it's Tolkien or something like that, one of them words I never use, so I don't know how to spell it, but they're called token black people. And they're used to try and convince everybody that, oh, everything's alright for black people. Look at this one. She got to go to Harvard, and now she's, you know, and here she is. And
I think it's fair to say on both of our behalves that like we are not the most obvious people to be speaking about like higher education, not because we are women of color, but because of the relationships that we each have individually with higher education. I'm a Harvard College alum, but I will say this openly.
okay, now I do get the feeling right there that when she said I am a Harvard College alum, that she's like glad that she's able to say that, like I'm better than everybody else. I mean, it's a kind of elitism, right? I mean, these people. Okay, I think I've said enough about it. I think I know I'm right. It's not something that is on the surface. It's something you have to dig deep. I mean, I think people like this are traitors to their own people, not just black people, but poor people. Yeah. I don't blame them. I'm not saying, oh, let's punish them or treat them badly, but yeah, I think we have to point out what's going on there and say, you know, that's not working. I know there's people who are going to disagree, but they're wrong. They're wrong. We do have to be vigilant and watch out for this. You know, they're used for propaganda purposes.